listening to the Marc Patrone radio program. If you'd like to call, here's the number: 416-640-0200. That's 416-640-0200. The Marc Patrone radio program, heard exclusively on News Talk, Saga 960.
He's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making. In the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont, they're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want to talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, just
I do want to turn to
please.
10 seconds, Mr. President.
That's
10
a
seconds.
typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk about North Korea.
I'm not a typical politician.
Okay,
that's why I got elected.
Well, he's right there. That is why he got elected. Miles Kristen joining us from Wisconsin, which is a battleground state, a place where, there are some polls suggesting that it's pretty much deadlocked right now between the Democrats and the Republicans. Miles, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so you saw the debate last night. Who do you think, at the end of the day, who benefited the most from that?
Probably Biden. I mean, then again, he had the advantage that, the reporter was somebody who, I don't know if it was tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, but her family has donated lots of money to the Democratic Party. They got their little Christmas photo taken with the Obamas. I mean, the reporter, definitely was a hardcore Democrat. So, that probably helped him a little bit.
Yeah, she didn't interfere as much as Chris Wallace, but I thought he was in better form. Trump was in better form this time. He didn't interrupt as much, and I think he made some solid points, especially in, all sorts of areas, but particularly the economy, locking down the economy. I never was quite sure or clear as to whether or not Biden would lock down the economy more under the guise of, we have to stop the COVID and the spread of the pandemic, or whether he would try to keep it open. I'm just really confused on this. Go ahead.
I was baffled when they both started talking about the minimum wage, and Trump said about leaving it up to the state, and it's like there's some real fundamental flaws in the whole argument about the minimum wage, and these people acting like if we just raise the minimum wage, it's going to make everything better. I mean, do I think that Walmart or a billion-dollar corporation should pay their people better? Absolutely, but that shouldn't apply to every single small business as well. And I was actually listening to the Nixon-Kennedy debate from 1960, and they were talking about raising the minimum wage to like $1.25 or $2 or whatever, and they were talking about in the cases of corporations or businesses that make more than $1 million a year. And that's like an aspect of the minimum wage debate that never gets brought into it, is like, we're talking about all companies, certain companies, but, it seems that they always talk about all companies when it comes to the minimum wage.
Well, I think Trump's take is we'll leave it up to the states, because each state, of course, has its own needs. And, the minimum wage means maybe less in a state like California than it does, say, in a state like Tennessee. I don't know. Maybe that's where he was going with this. But what about all the seedy aspects of Joe and Hunter Biden's ties to China, Ukraine, Russia, all these shady deals that Hunter has been involved in, this email scandal? You've got all this smut, including porn on hardcore stuff.
It's not going to change the votes of any Democrats, right? And it's going to anger the conservatives. I don't really think Hunter Biden is going to, change the vote of somebody who's potentially a swing voter or whatever. I think if you were really going to put Biden and Trump into these extremes, it's like you look at Trump and it's like, okay, there's a great economy, and then on the other side it's like, oh, there's Biden, he's gonna stop the pandemic, and that's really where maybe the fundamental difference could be that people see, is that in one side there's your, economic, and then there's, on the other side, there's your, safety. I mean, fundamentally, is the economy good? No, because we print money, and that gets into the Federal Reserve and all that stuff, and the debt. We don't get into the Federal Reserve. We don't get in the debt. And even with Biden and how he could handle COVID and doing more testing and so forth, I'm sure there's some draconian policies when it comes to Biden and how he would handle COVID. I do think he might do better when it comes to testing and things like that.
All right, Miles. I mean, ultimately, which way do you see this election going? I mean, you've been keeping an eye on this thing. Some of the polls suggesting that Trump has cut into the Democrat lead just in the last little while. Trump certainly has the advantage in enthusiasm. And so some of these states, I guess it's up to states like Wisconsin, like Michigan, where apparently Trump's in the lead. I think in Pennsylvania, it's a bit more of a dogfight, but I'm hearing that Trump has an edge in Ohio. What are you hearing in terms of how this thing is shaping up, election-wise?
If I had to bet right now, I would bet on Biden. The first 3 years of Trump's presidency, I saw him getting a easy re-election. I mean, pre-COVID, it looked like, wow, he's going to get re-elected no matter which Democrat they go with from that primary. And, they could, of course, gone with somebody better than Biden. And, I think that there is a small percentage of Republicans who voted for Trump in 2016 that are going to vote for Biden this time. And, at the same time, Trump is going to get more African American, more Hispanic support than any Republican ever. But I think Trump's going to lose a couple of those states that he won the last time. And there's going to probably be some cheating by the Democratic Party, and we'll find it out, next year and the year after and the year after, and they'll be writing about it for decades about how there were probably a lot of individuals who were going to cheat to help Biden. And I see Biden winning at this point. So the question is like, if Trump's going to lose, then what policies do they want to really put in the time they have left? They're going to get that Judge Barrett in. He could be doing a lot to get the troops out of these foreign wars. He could be doing a lot with potentially the time he's got left if he's not going to be president much longer.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the momentum is going with Trump right now, and this thing with the fracking and the energy, the oil, phasing out the oil industry, it's not going to help him in some of those battleground states. And I'm thinking Pennsylvania, a very, very key state. There was a lot of people watching that debate to see what Biden is going to do. First, he denied that he was going to ban fracking, and then he said we're going to phase out the entire oil industry. Well, that's not going to pass muster in the likes of Texas, in Pennsylvania, and some of these other states where are more and more energy reliant. I mean, did that hurt him yesterday?
Well, he goes both ways on the environmental policies. I mean, if you look at like the Obama administration, they were actually really they weren't so eco-friendly when it came to environmental policies. I mean, Obama would boast about, we've got more fracking, more drilling, more nuclear power, and Biden says he's against this and against that to get those more left-leaning Democrat support, but fracking would play a huge factor in Pennsylvania, and you think Trump would win Pennsylvania considering how much he's supported mining and so forth, but the data does look like he's going to win Pennsylvania. And I guess it comes down to the fact that all he has to do is win all the big Democrat cities, and then it cancels out all the rural Pennsylvania, you know?
Yeah, I don't think the pollsters have a really good way of measuring just the strength of the red wave outside of the main city. So, yeah, I mean, in Wisconsin, for instance, it's safe to say that Biden is going to win Madison, for instance, and Milwaukee. But as soon as you get outside those areas, and you know this, driving around in northern Wisconsin in those areas, it's just nothing but Trump signs. So it's that divide, right? The rural-urban divide, and really it's almost a battle for the soul of America, whether or not the rural side wins, all the farmers for Trump, or you get the city slickers and the liberals there.
Well, I mean, in southern western Wisconsin, we have what's called the driftless community, and so it's like basically everything west of Madison, and it's farmland. It's all farmland to Iowa, and you can go out there and you can see a lot of Biden signs. I mean, there are those, as they used to call them, blue dog Democrats and so forth. And, if it was a guy like Bernie Sanders, well, you wouldn't be winning them over. But Biden does win over particular types of farming communities and so forth.
Well, considering how radical his party has gone, the fact that he is now suffering the advanced stages of cognitive decline, knowing full well that he's got a radical running mate in Kamala Harris, I don't see why those people, if they're paying attention, would support the Democrats. But that's my take on it. Miles, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Miles Kristen, coming to us from just outside Madison, Wisconsin. And we'll be back with more News Talk on Saga 960 after this.
Stream us live at saga960am.ca.